All right, let's get right into it. In this explainer, we are decoding a massive, highly sought-after UPSC model answer by exploring the brilliant and, frankly, completely ruthless minds of two legendary political strategists. We are putting Kautilya's ancient Indian statecraft head-to-head with Machiavelli's infamous Italian realism. So buckle up, because we are about to unpack some of the most fascinating political theory ever put to paper. Okay, let's dive into this with an absolute shocker. Picture this. Max Weber, one of the absolute greatest sociologists of the 20th century, drops this bombshell in his famous speech, Politics as a Vocation. He claims that true, hardcore Machiavellianism is actually found in Kautilya's Arthashastra. In fact, he argues that compared to Kautilya, Machiavelli's famous book, The Prince, is practically harmless. Just let that sink in for a second. The man whose very name means political ruthlessness, being called harmless. Now, if you're going to make an explosive claim like that, you need some serious academic firepower to back it up. Enter modern American scholar Roger Boschi. He wrote extensively on this exact comparison in his book, The First Great Political Realist, along with his research paper, Moderate Machiavelli. If you're tackling a comparative question on this, dropping Boschi's name in your exam paper is an absolute game changer. It shows a depth of academic knowledge that will instantly make your answer jump off the page. So here is our roadmap for today. First, context across civilizations. Then we'll get into the convergence, breaking down the 6 shared pillars of their realism. After that, the divergence, where we look at 4 crucial differences. And finally, we'll synthesize the whole thing into a perfect, ready-to-use model answer. Section 1. Context across civilizations. Let's set the historical stage before we start comparing their ideas. Think about the sheer scale of history separating these two. You've got Kautilya advising Chandragupta Maurya, helping build the massive Mauryan Empire way back around 321 BC. Then, fast forward, literally 1,800 years later, to 1513 AD, and you have Niccolo Machiavelli writing The Prince in a deeply chaotic, divided Italy. But here is the crazy part. Despite an 1,800-year gap, they wanted the exact same thing. They both desperately wanted to unify fragmented, warring states into one powerful, stable empire. And they were both whispering directly into the ears of rulers to make it happen. Section 2. The Convergence. Time to open up the playbook on the dark arts of statecraft with their 6 shared pillars. I'm going to run through these quickly just to give you the lay of the land. 1. Unification from fragmentation. 2. The absolute centrality of force. 3. Strategic adaptability. 4. Systematic espionage. 5. Religion as a political tool. And 6. The balance of power. Let's really unpack these. So, for both of these guys, fear is the ultimate, most reliable tool a ruler has. Kautilya warned about Matsanyaya, which translates to the law of the fishes. Basically, the big fish eat the small fish. It's pure anarchy. To stop this, he championed Dandaniti, the science of force and punishment. And honestly, this is a perfect mirror to Machiavelli's advice in Chapter 18 of The Prince. Machiavelli says the ruler has to act like a lion, and famously argues it's much safer to be feared than loved. For both of them, force is the only thing keeping chaos at bay. Now, what's really fascinating here is how perfectly their strategies map onto each other. Kautilya gives us 4 core policies: Sam for conciliation, Dam for bribery, Dand for force, and Bade for creating division. Look at how seamlessly that aligns with Machiavelli's concept of the ruler needing to be both the lion and the fox. Kautilya's Dand is exactly Machiavelli's lion, just raw, brutal force. Meanwhile, Dam and Bed, that's the sly cunning of the fox. They both demand that a ruler be insanely adaptable to whatever the situation requires. And then we get to systematic espionage. Honestly, this is where Weber calling Machiavelli harmless really starts to make sense. Sure, Machiavelli said a ruler shouldn't keep unprofitable promises, but Kautilya? He takes it to a whole different stratosphere of ruthlessness. The Arthashastra lays out a massive, highly institutionalized spy network. We're talking undercover merchants, sleeper agents, and even silent wars using covert assassinations. Kautilya literally advised kings to sign treaties with the explicit, day-one intention of breaking them. Now about religion. And I really want to stress this point. Neither of these thinkers looked at religion as some untouchable divine truth. Not at all. They saw it purely as a pragmatic, highly effective tool for political control. Kautilya had zero problem advising spies to fabricate divine omens just to boost his own army's morale while terrifying the enemy. Sound familiar?
Machiavelli did the exact same thing when he praised leaders like Numa Pompilius for using religion strictly to instill discipline and order within the state.
And this brilliantly illustrates their shared approach to foreign policy too. Kautilya came up with the mandala theory. It's elegantly brutal. Your immediate neighbor is your natural enemy, but your neighbor's neighbor, that's your friend. It is pure, unadulterated balance of power. And it's the exact same brand of diplomatic realism Machiavelli was observing and advising during the constant backstabbing and shifting alliances of the Italian city-states. The highest priority is always the self-interest of the state, or raison d'etat.
Section 3. The divergence. Because a top-tier answer doesn't just list similarities. We need to contrast their differences to really show mastery.
Let's break down exactly where they split. First up, the moral framework. Machiavelli completely strips morality out of politics, but Kautilya actually stays within the traditional bounds of dharma, keeping a big focus on yogakshema, which is the welfare of the people. Second is the scope of their work. Kautilya's Arthashastra is this massive encyclopedia covering everything from taxes to the economy, while Machiavelli's Prince is just a thin, ultra-focused manual. Third is their context. Kautilya was a highly empowered advisor building a rising empire. Machiavelli, he was writing from political exile, desperate to get back in. And finally, fortune. Machiavelli constantly wrestles with the battle between virtue and fortuna, basically skill versus luck. But Kautilya strongly prioritizes purushakar, human effort, way above fate.
Section 4. The synthesis. All right, let's slow down for a second, channel that professor energy, and put all of this together into a flawless, line-by-line model answer.
You always want to start strong. Boom, right out of the gate. Hit the examiner with that Max Weber quote. State that true Machiavellianism is found in Kautilya, making Machiavelli look completely harmless. This instantly hooks the reader and perfectly frames the deep, fundamental similarities we're about to explore. Let's move to the first body paragraph and see how this builds. This is where you rapid fire through those shared pillars, explain how both sought to unify fragmented lands, Mauryan and Italian, draw a direct line between Kautilya's Dandaniti and Machiavelli's Lion, then highlight their shared obsession with institutional espionage and how they both ruthlessly used religion and shifting alliances to maintain power.
But you can't just stop at the similarities, right? Dedicating your second body paragraph to their differences is what provides that critical balance the examiners are looking for. This is where you contrast Machiavelli's hardline secularism with Kautilya's concept of yogakshema, or public welfare. And don't forget to mention the vast, encyclopedic scope of the Arthashastra versus the narrow, pointed focus of the Prince. So the crucial point to bring it all home in your conclusion is this. Despite an 1,800-year gap and totally different civilizations, their core takeaway transcends time and geography entirely. For political survival and stability, sheer power, cunning, and practical wisdom will absolutely always trump moral ideals, period. That right there is the ultimate definition of political realism. Which leads me to a final, slightly provocative question to leave you with today. To actually survive in the brutal world of politics, is it more important to study harsh reality than beautiful ideals? I mean, think about how Kautilya and Machiavelli would answer that. I hope this deep dive has left you energized and hungry for more political theory, because in our next explainer, we are jumping straight into the complex dynamics of state and power. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep learning.